Right, this is a really good turnout. Great to see everybody. I'm Julie Strawson. I lead the team at TypeThursday London with enormous amount of input from these guys, Andrew and Anastasius, who are our crit leads, and they're going to be helping lots of people tonight get some feedback on the typefaces. But also you guys need to do that too. So we're really keen on your questions. We'll make this really participative. I can say that because I've only had orange juice. And hopefully really constructive for all of the designers tonight. So I'm not going to go on too long because we've got a bit of a special thing to start with tonight. But I do want to say thanks first. So thanks to the University of Greenwich. Big round of applause. Yeah. Because they are amazing education partners. Ever since we launched TypeThursday, they've been right there supporting it, as have many of you students here tonight. And I really appreciate, there's some really familiar faces now that keep turning up, which is brilliant. But also for hosting it tonight. This is great, it's a fantastic space and just perfect for this, so thank you so much. We also need to recognise that we wouldn't be having a drink without the help of these lovely people. So our sponsors are the Hofmitz Milken Centre for Typography. Yay! Yay! Who's heard of them before? Oh yeah, a few of you that have been before do, but not many of you. And they're actually based out in Los Angeles at Art Center College, but they are bringing all of their resources to support typography in education to London as well. And we're doing quite a lot of fun things that I'll tell you about in a minute. And the other amazing sponsor is Adobe Typekit. So I know a lot of you guys use Typekit in your work. I was talking to a number of students here about it a couple of weeks ago. So thank you guys. Big round of applause for sponsors, everyone. Thank you. And just a quick plug. So I recommend this event. So I'm wearing the t-shirt, Vox Pop London is coming up. And this is an event that, well, I think it's at the zeitgeist. It's all about how we feel right now about our society as designers and as creative people, really. And we're gathering together some amazing designers. We've got Jonathan Barnbrook. We've got Ty Drake, who was involved in redesigning the Black Panthers manifesto. So if you know the Black Panthers film, the whole kind of ethos behind that, he's been involved with that. We've got Mike Abink coming in October, who's IBM's Plex typeface designer. Worked with Eric Speakerman for years. Oh, we've got amazing Paul Barnes from Commercial Type Speaking. We've got Nadine Shaheen from, she's Nadine Shaheen these days. She's freelance, so if you need a good Arabic typeface designer, that's the one. But come along to Vox Pop London on the 25th, I think it is, of April. That's when we're kicking off for protest, and it's going to be very heated. If any of you have ever heard Jonathan speak before, Jonathan Barnbrook, he's very passionate about what he does, and he doesn't do things by the book, so it'll be fun. Creative Review are going to be moderating it as well. We've got a few student tickets left for that one, not many, but student tickets are only £10, and any Type Thursday person, if you sign up for our Type Thursday newsletter, you get £10 off each event as well. So. And they're only £30 each, so it's pretty good. And you get champagne on arrival, you get canapes. Anyway, so hope to see you there. That's enough of that. Right, so at Type Thursday, we love type, right? We're here to appreciate type in all its forms and glories, so letter forms of all kinds. And Positype is our foundry of the month. Who's heard of Positype before? One. Paul has. Yeah, and Will has. Okay, a few people nodding, not many though. They have some beautiful typefaces. I recommend you have a look. I know you've got a brochure from them now and probably some badges as well. But this is I think it's called Lusty or something. This display face. It's beautiful, and I set the deck in their typeface from here on, just in honour of their and recognising that we are supporting them this month. If you have a favourite foundry that you think deserves a mention that doesn't get enough airtime, let us know, because we don't charge to do this. We just curate interesting foundries and mention them to everyone. Right, so we're going to have Alex Camacho talk to you in a minute about his amazing TDC, that's Type Directors Club, Certificate of Excellence winning typeface, Oregon. And then we've got the type crit led by Anastasius and Andrew. But I'm not going to do any more talking. Isn't that nice for you all? I'm going to pass you over to Alex, and he's going to take you through, all about Oregon, I guess. And there you go. And see, yeah, this is a special thing. I mean, I'm sure if you want to ask questions of the audience, you're very welcome to turn it into a crit if you want. But yeah, that's great. Thanks, Alex.
Sorry? No, yeah. Hi, everybody. So what I'm going to talk today is about my latest phone called Origin. Origin means origin in Spanish. And well, I'm a freelance graphic designer, so what allows me to be a freelance graphic designer is like I can work on my own projects as well, and this is one of them. So, yeah, you can go to the first one, yeah. Yeah, so normally on my projects I always work with typography. I do like a lot of lettering, some branding as well. So normally everything is related to typography. And sometimes a whole family of a typeface. But I haven't done many, but I have maybe like a couple of them. And the one I'm going to talk today, as I said before, is called Origin, and it's inspired by the illuminated manuscript. And I don't know if, yeah. So I've been always very into illuminated manuscripts and all kind of medieval manuscripts. I really like this kind of capitals, where like this kind of illustrations becomes part of the alphabet, and also into the calligraphy. So when I decided to do this kind of project, I also wanted to learn. So I was going to practice a lot of calligraphy. So then, even this is not a historic replica, so I was not trying to do a typeface which is like exactly as the calligraphy they used to use or the letters they used to use. It was more like an inspiration and then doing my own thing. So the way I started on this, it was like through calligraphy, yeah. And so then I decided to do like a lot of calligraphy, all kind of styles, like fracture, textura, like all of them, So I was not interested in doing like a perfect calligraphy. I was more interested in doing something which had some personality on it, and then so I was looking for some interesting strokes and some beautiful shapes to it. So I was trying, took my time. I was not in a hurry because it was like a personal project. So then once I thought I was in a good point to start drawing the letters on the top of the calligraphy, I started to do lettering on the top of it. I'm very familiar with lettering, so I took the typeface as I was like a piece of lettering. So I started to draw on the top of these letters I thought were interesting from the calligraphy side, and then drawing and redrawing on the top of it until I was happy with the shapes I was doing. And so yeah, it was like kind of experimenting. What it allows me to draw on this way is like I can change very fast, if I like one stroke or I like another one, or if I don't like any, I can redraw again, and it's very fast. I think, when I'm working on my daily basis jobs, I'm working always with computer, so I think when I do this kind of jobs, I think it's very nice to go back, and work more with the hand. So then, once I was in that stage, I thought, okay, I kind of like some of the letters. So I decided to go into the digital side. I use normally a lot of Illustrator. I know like many typeface designers, they don't like to use Illustrator. But for me, personally, I take Illustrator as a second sketch. It's more like a digital sketch. And it's like very fast to draw. And then I can see if it's going to work or not, the typeface. So, because sometimes you can see a sketch drawn by hand, and maybe once you see it on glyphs, maybe you don't like it, you know. So, Illustrator is kind of in the middle of hand and maybe glyphs or FontLab or whatever you use. So this is one of the first ones I did, and I didn't like it so much because I think it was too calligraphic. So I started to draw again and again on the top of them. I wanted to have like a typeface, which is like more geometric, and so then I started to simplify all the details of it. This here you can see more or less the process I was following from the beginning, from the calligraphy to the lettering, to this digital sketch, and then to the type software. I started using FontLab, but then I went to glyphs just because I wanted to learn, so I was taking this as an opportunity to learn a new software. And this was not a linear job, so sometimes, you know, when I was designing in glyphs, I was thinking, oh, maybe the X, I don't like it, so I went back to draw it in calligraphy. It's much faster than try to draw again and again with the vector, so it was more like a job of going back and forward. On this slide you can see like a comparison a little bit, like one of the first digital sketches I did from the lettering, and here is the one of the last, no, the last one of the medium's weight. And even when I see the first one, I really like it, but I think as a system, as a font, it was not working properly. So I don't know. I think it's quite interesting, the first one, but not as maybe as a font. So yeah, it's okay. Yeah. So here you can see how it is like the result of the medium weight and how it works. I wanted to be like a family, to have like a font family, so I decided to do the same process again once I had the medium weight with light and bold. So instead of using the software to do the different weights, I decided to draw again from the beginning, because I was thinking that way was going to be a family, but each of the weights with a different personality. Here you can see like a small piece of how it works. And, so together I think you can see it's proper family, but if you see it separately, it's like, I think they work quite well. And as this is like inspired by the illuminated manuscripts, I wanted to do as well the capitals. So you need to be able to design the manuscript, you need the capitals, yeah. So based on the bold version of the font, I draw the set of capitals, so you can draw your own or design your own manuscript. So this is the whole family. So light, regular, bold, and the set of capitals. And I think there's a couple. Well, here you can see more details of it. I guess it's quite difficult. If you are interested in it, you can ask me later, and I can give you like the link or like, you know, and you can see more information. I guess it's quite difficult to see the details here, but well, you can see more or less the shapes of it. And this is the capitals as well. I think they're quite complex, but I think in a small size, I think they're still quite readable as well. So would be happy to see some designs of you. You want to use it? And here is like a couple of very simple examples of manuscripts, you know, how to use the whole family. And I've done like a small video just to show some examples of images, how to use the font. It's like quite short, so it'll be quick. So there are just some examples of how to use the font and how it works, and the possibilities it has, and the family as well. So you can write in all Latin-based languages. thank you for your patience.
It's not an easy one. It's not an easy one, all right? So tell us a bit about the experience, because we're talking about Type's Directors Club, all right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure that some people here, they might want to know a bit about this experience. Why? How?
Why?
What happened after that?
This is what happens afterwards.
After the Type Directors,
Yeah,
what happened after in general?
No, well, I think I've been always a fan of the Type Directors Club, and so I wanted to try. You know, I've been working on this like for more than 3 years. You know, so it's like it was like a very, very long process. So I don't know how long it would take me to explain, but it was a very, very long process. So it was like a personal project. So I was not in a hurry, so I was really, really taking my time on it, like in each detail of the font, in each letter. I draw each letter of them like so many times, you cannot even imagine. And I thought I wanted to try, you know. I thought it was a nice font, and I wanted to try, you know. Like I thought I could. Why not? Why not? You know? Why not?
What are you working on now? Are you working on something else? Or
well, I started another. Well, this font at the beginning I wanted to do like more styles, but after 3 years and a half, something like that, I said, okay, that's enough. Then maybe in the future I take it and do another styles. But now I started a different one, completely different one. Like the previous typeface was completely different. This one and the one I'm working on now is completely different as well. I do this as well, like to learn, you know, as well, like new shapes, new letters, like new, you know, like different things. I don't do this kind of things on my regular job, so I think it's like something good to do. And yeah, it's fun.
Good.
It's fun, yeah.
Do you have any questions from the crowd, maybe? Yes.
Yeah,
Can we?
Hello. You see on the capital letters, the extra flourishes around the. Where did you come up with that idea? Is it like an afterthought? A thought? Once you've done the original letters, did you think to do the extra flourishes afterwards? To give it a bit more like detail. These on there.
I think. Sorry. I think probably the whole font was an excuse to do this. You know, so yeah, I really like it. You know, these kind of things. You know, these kind of big letters like bold, and I think they're fun. You know. So I think they're based in calligraphy. You know, like the inspiration is from calligraphy. You know, like if you look at calligraphy, you know, you will see probably similar stuff. You know, as well. But yeah, when I was drawing and experimenting with different tools, doing the calligraphy, that was one of the shapes I was doing at the beginning, you know, maybe drawing on the top of the letter, you know, with a different tool as well. So yeah, kind of mixing, you know, trying. I think this font is the result of trying, you know, and then the things I didn't like, so, you know, like not being in a hurry, you know, and just experimenting. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah. Great. All right then. Alex, do you want any more questions? I thought it's gonna come. We'll come on.
First of all, beautiful work. But I wondered about questions of scale, because there are some really distinctive, very fine features to these letters that are clearly not going to be sustainable at smaller sizes. There are junctions that are going to break or fill in, and you know, we have the luxury of looking at this at a much larger scale than it might be used. I wondered whether that was something that you'd considered, and whether you'd actually perhaps looked at the idea of optical sizings.
Interesting question. So, well, obviously the capitals, you know, is like a different thing. The other ones, I think they work quite well in small scale as well. However, it's true that you are not going to be able to work like at 8 points or something like that. But it's not the purpose of this font, You're not going to write a book with it. Probably you're going to use it maybe like for a paragraph or for a cover or something like that. So when I started, the font was something more personal than looking for the usability of it. But I think it works quite well in a small scale. The light is like quite well because it's like very, very thin lines, so then you can go smaller. But yeah, obviously it's not like a typeface to use like a few pages or like a book. I wouldn't recommend that. Would be happy to see it. Thank you.
Great, Alex. Thank you very much for that. Right. So before we bring Dennis on, I'd like to say a couple of things about the space where you are. This is the University of Greenwich. This is the home for the Department of Creative Professions and Digital Arts, and also the home for architecture and landscape architecture. This is a brand new building, and we moved in here in 2014. For those that they know, Greenwich here used to be the old antique Greenwich Market, Paul, right? And offices and petrol station. So what you see around, if you have some time, I might take you to see some of our aquaponic labs with the fish and the vegetables and some of the gardens upstairs. So if we do that later, if we have some time. On behalf of the department, I would like to thank you all for being tonight. It's good to have the Type Thursday in Greenwich. It's supposed to be a month ago with the snow, but as you can see, we prefer the sun. So we postponed it, and it's worth it. So thank you for that. Yes, Dennis, would you like to come over?
This typeface that I've been working on is called Awari. It was for the module that I'm doing in MA Graphic Design Typography at Anglia Ruskin University. The typeface is it's chromatic and it's modular, and it uses interchangeable components. So those were just examples of different sets that you can create using the components. So I started by looking at Ghanaian textiles, looking at the patterns that you could find on them, because they're quite varied, they're quite geometric, a lot of them, and I dramatically simplified a lot of the patterns, and that was one of the sort of grids that I created using one of those simplifications, and from that grid I created the letter forms. So these were the base letter forms that were based on the grid that I created from that particular pattern. And then from there, I manipulated that particular set of letter forms to create a bunch of different sets that I'd be using for the typeface. The typeface is based on the Adinkra symbols from Ghana. They all communicate particular ideas, particular concepts. So maybe they communicate ideas about human life, about animals, about nature. And I wanted to find a way of communicating these same ideas and these same concepts in a more written format, which was why I decided to try and create a type system that used elements from this. So I grouped these symbols based on their meanings into a bunch of different groups. I had 6 groups by the end of it based on their meanings, and then from there I used the visual elements in each of those groups to create. I manipulated the letter forms that I had in the base. So this is the first set. These ones were based on the symbols that represent ideas of power, about ideas of dominance and leadership. So I took elements such as the repeated lines, the corners that you see here, to create those sort of reinforced feel that you see in those letter forms. It doesn't work that well at a smaller size, but it's generally meant to be used for display purposes anyway. Then the second set makes use of elements from these symbols here. for this one, I sort of tried to take an approach that involved sort of reducing each of the letter forms to the bare minimum required to make them recognizable. Some of them don't work as well as others. This was one of the things I wanted feedback on. So I'll be coming back to this one later. Then this one's about ideas that represent union. So it's ideas about companionship, about working together, friendship. So I sort of took elements such as these. There are a lot of sort of spiky elements and stuff like that. So I tried to incorporate those into the base that I had at the start. This was the only one that used 2 tones for the base as well when I was creating this one. And then this one is one that I wasn't too pleased on, but that's how it looks for now. So these are ideas based on ideas about God, about spirituality, about divinity. So I took those sort of wavy, ethereal sort of qualities and tried to reflect those into the letter forms. But it's kind of, I don't know, I'm not too happy with it, but I guess we'll see. Yeah. This was one of my favorite ones, just because of how it works, both at a small and a large scale. At a smaller scale, it sort of has a 3D element to it, and at a large scale, you can see the fine details in the lines. But these ideas, the symbols that these represent, are communicating ideas about intelligence, about intellect, about wisdom, creativity. So that's what these symbols and that group represented. And then this one was another reductive approach. So I tried to take the actual strokes and reduce them to the bare minimum required to recognize them. But once again, some of them aren't as recognizable as others. And that was another thing I wanted feedback on. So I'll come back to those later. And yeah, the purpose of the typeface was to communicate particular ideas and emotions. So I wanted to make it a modular typeface so that I could do that. So it involves taking particular components from each of the sets and mixing them together based on what ideas, what emotions that you wanted to communicate. So these were the 15 pairs that you can create using each of the sets that I created. So maybe you take elements from this one, from that one, and then you combine them to create that. And there's a lot of that. And then these were a few more examples of what I'd created. So these were a few more examples of the kind of combinations that you can create. A lot of these, they involve a lot more than 2 sets. It generally just depends on what idea that one would be trying to communicate. And these are just examples of the kind of ideas that you may want to communicate using the sets that you're combining. So this one's using the intellect set and the union to sort of communicate an idea of discussion. This one's using the ones that involve heroism and union to inform protection. This one's evolution because it involves using union and a change over time. So this was just an example of how it works with a bunch of different colors. There is a color system that I sort of implemented into the actual system that I'm using. So it just takes elements from the connotations that are applied to Ghanaian textiles. So blue represents harmony, green is spiritual growth, wealth is represented in yellow and purple, and red is sacrifice and I think it's political power. I'd have to look at it, but yeah, that's some of them. And because it's a modular typeface, it allows you to create patterns, so it's quite varied in how you can use the elements in the typeface. So this one uses that part of the I, that part of the A to create that pattern. So you can create abstract patterns using those to communicate ideas. It doesn't have to be in a written format. And these were the ones that I mainly wanted feedback on. Just because some of them aren't as recognizable as others. So you've got like the F and the R, they look exactly the same just because of how I tried to reduce them. The U and the L, they look exactly the same just because of the shape and what element I tried to focus on when I was going for the reduction. And then these, I think they're only recognizable just because of the sequence that they're in. If they were not in a sequence, I'm not sure they'd be as recognizable as they are. If they were used on their own, that's where the problem comes in, but if you're using them in combination with the other sets, then it's not really a problem that you'd come across. So it's mainly just if you're trying to communicate that idea specifically, that it'd be something that you need to worry about. And then that was the set that I was least happy with, just because it was quite inconsistent in how I had to use the elements from the symbols that I was taking from them. So the rules work for some of them, but they don't work for others. So I was trying to create this curve that you see here, wherever there's a curve in the actual letter forms, but the problem arises where there are letter forms that don't have any curves in them. So that was one solution that I thought of. But the only issue with that is that when you have something like an N that has a straight line as well as the curve, then there's the problem of whether you'd include that same element there. So stuff like the K and then the 7 and the 4, the 1. So whether that works there, I'm not too sure. And then there are places where there are two curves, but there's only one of those shapes coming out of the curves, like the M and the W. So I was just trying to figure out whether it would work on two curves, but that sort of creates a very large space in the middle that just makes it look odd and jarring compared to everything else. And yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
I'm stepping in, right? You
Yeah.
can leave there. Okay. So the way that the Type Thursday works is that we are giving feedback to his work. We are challenging him, and then we are helping him to improve the work, right? So for me, Dennis, it's very important to see that there is a level of intellectuality after a beer. I can say that word, yes. Where you're applying personal, your ethos towards your work, and we can see that through you talk about religion, you talk about values, you talk about like political or other social influences. So yes, some comments about his work. Do we like this? Daniel?
You move your head, yes.
Well, actually, I think that's the one I like the most. I think it's the waves kind of make it go further from the really straight and curved structure that you define for the skeleton of the family. And I think those waves kind of break that really rigid mathematical construction for it. And I think I don't know, I was trying to think why I like this one more than the other ones. Because I think, as Anastasio said, the whole system and the whole conceptual thing is really so tied together, and I love the influence of the Ghana thing and everything. And I think that when we're talking about religion and spirituality and everything, this is the one that kind of takes me there quicker, because I think the
whole idea, the concept of
this one, I don't know. I think it kind of breaks up the rigid construction of the skeleton that you proposed for the whole family. So I don't know.
Yes, Kelly.
As you just also say that I actually really like this one. I mean, I love the 8, I love the 3, I love the S, I love the curved characters. I mean, they're fantastic. In regards to the reductive ones, I don't know if that's really a problem, because the beauty of your font is the fact it's modular. So is it really a problem? Because as I said, you're going to be using them really in combination. I mean, I think it's nice to have two which are not fully formed, so they can be used with other concepts that you can describe. I mean, I don't know, everyone else might maybe not agree with me, but I don't think that's necessarily an issue.
I will agree with you actually, because exactly of the way that you design the form, it's giving this dynamic of the form that it might read, or it might allow the reader to read in a specific way. If you go back to the previous one, the page number 15, Down, go down. Yeah, this one. Okay. So I would like some comments on how to improve the problem, because he mentioned that when we have a curve, it's easier to continue the design. But then he mentioned about N, for example, where you have a curve and a line. So some comments about it, John?
Well, there are two examples at the bottom. On the right-hand side, there are two ends, and I much prefer the right-hand one, where the curve, I think the straight line on the left of those two examples stands out and looks a bit incongruous, but where it's all curved, it still reads like an N to me. But I can see the problem with the row of 4 M's at the top, where you make the one on the right becomes so dark, where there's lots and lots of curves. But I think the second one from the left is all curved and doesn't have the problem of being dark, so I like that a lot. So something like the letter K, you've shown an example with the straight as being curved, incurved, whatever the word would be, and I like that. In fact, I think that this one as a whole has it reminds me of some Art Nouveau lettering, which is not a bad comparison, you think.
Great. Andrew, you...
Can I have my
Yeah, go for
I've
it.
got one more comment. If we go back to the slide where the ones where you've cut them away, just the one that one. I understand the problem you were expressing was what would you do if you only wanted to use this lettering by itself, just to convey this one quality? But there's a suggestion I would make, which was that perhaps you could have some kind of ghostly version of just the skeleton, not elaborated in any way, but just your initial skeleton behind each of the letters, as an option to use. I'm not saying it has to be part of this set of shapes, but if you wanted to just use these shapes, perhaps if you had that kind of basic unadorned form as a ghost you could put just behind it, then it would aid the legibility.
But it depends the display as well. Like, it depends where you are using the font. If it's a signage or it's just aesthetics purposes for a building, for example. Recently, I've been in John Lewis, they changed the signage, and maybe it's something that might work because you associate it. Let's say if that was 3rd floor, for example, I would associate that with the 3rd floor. So it depends the content. Any other comment? Yes.
I've got a question about the modularity, about how you envisage this working as a system. Because on the one hand, we can see it as something that would be where the choices involved and the combinations of different elements would be driven entirely by the designer using the system. I wondered whether you'd thought beyond that to the idea of something that in which particular combinations might be generated, might be programmed, might be preset, or whether you see this as being solely something for the designer user to determine. Because clearly you've got different elements of the system that carry different resonances, different meanings, and I wondered whether you'd started to either to group those into, if you like, particular groupings within the system, or whether you'd thought of I'm imagining some kind of generative system that would do this for us.
Generally I was aiming for it to be something where the designer would sort of choose which combinations they want to work with, but I think having something that would generate it would actually work quite well. If it was random, that would be interesting as well, just for the variety and just to see what kind of combinations you can come up with. So that's something that I would like to experiment with. I'm not sure how I'd make that happen, but I'm sure I could find a way eventually.
Right. A last comment.
Just one thing actually, maybe worth looking at a design type studio called Underwear. They're very, very good with their tech. They've done maybe not the same style as this, but they have done a lot of things with like randomization, different combinations of letters, and I mean they are wizards with technology, and they're very nice guys. They'll probably be more than happy to answer any questions you send an email.
Great. Thank you very much. Dennis, thank you. Paul, would you like to... in the meantime, if you feel like you want to have another drink, you just have to stand up, go there, get a drink, and come back to your place, right? Just as simple as that. So, Paul Harpin, he joined TypeThursday London quite a while ago, so he decided to come and show his work. He's a neighbor, he lives up the hill in Blackheath, right? Yep. I asked him earlier, how do you want to introduce you, how many years of design? And he said to me, I started at 55.
No problem. Yeah, I became a type designer at 55. I'm 61 next month, so I've done 300 magazines. I was creative director of Haymarket for 20 years and Centaur and Redwood, so I've done thousands of magazines. So what I do is I design type that I'd use probably in magazines, so lots of straight sides, and I've got two things to show you. I've got a new company, which I never thought I'd be doing type either, to be honest with you. It was an ambition when I was a young student. I'm a student now, really, because I'm learning. Amazing work to follow. So there's London Type Foundry, but I've just been asked to show my type campaign charity I did, which is called Buy Font Save Lives. So I'll probably be about 20 minutes rather than 15. And then I'm going to show one typeface. I'm going to do some typesetting, because I've always been a designer, so I can't see the type unless I actually typeset it. And I've got a bit of music, so bear with me. I'll talk over the music if you can hear it. So in the Type Foundry, there are three of us. Paul Hickson has designed type, not like me, for probably 50 years. He was at Phase, he was at Headliners, him and his wife are creative directors at Quick Brown Fox. And we've got a lot of new typefaces. We've got 12, and 2 more coming out. Lots of nice double daggers and ampersands. And I just love it, just draw away all day. And I don't have any staff anymore like I used to have. We've got a guest typeface that Peter Grundy's done, because we thought we'd have some London sort of things. So we've got these dingbats that we've done. That Pete's a great designer. You've probably got a brochure. I've dropped some brochures off. I'm going to talk about this typeface on the left in a minute, which happened as a massive accident for me, and it's a bit unconventional because every character is a square. This typeface is my sort of reaction to Brexit. It's called London Mix, and it's got a build-up of serifs, a bit like Meta from Eric Speakerman, that allows you to set different styles. That's back to Peter's. Have a look at his website, grundini.com. He's a genius. But I just drew the sort of typefaces that I've always used, but my versions of them, I suppose. And Paul, this fantastic new modern one, which is very good for architecture and that sort of thing. And all the fonts are influenced by things we see in London. This is my sort of homage to my old boss. I used to work for Banks and Miles, and we did all the post office and Royal Mail, every client that was British when I was first started at work. And these sort of straight lines. This is the one I'm going to talk about in a minute. And Paul sort of designs text faces because he's done it for about 40 years more than me, so it's easier for him. And he says things like, I've just done the Cyrillic, or I'll just do the Greek for that, and it comes back and he's finished off my typeface, which is a great thing to have. He plays in a folk band, and he plays the mandolin and drinks beer and goes on little cruises with his wife. And we're both sort of retired, really. It's a new script that he's just been working on, so this isn't mine, which is a terrific thing. So we're quite a contrast. And I was just a bit surprised because it all came about because of the typeface I did after my knees died, I'll talk about in a second. So these are our typefaces, homages to my old boss at Banks and Miles, and some famous designers using our fonts. Peter Blake's Heart that I stole very ruthlessly, and I always liked Twen and Willie Fleckhouse and Lance Wyman from Mexico 1968, and Herb Lublin, the genius, so it's our fonts. And my old boss John Miles at Banks and Miles, and H.E., my friend, who designed Johnston, and this is from London Life, which is a 60s newspaper that David Hillman designed. And a Roman, it's named after my niece. So that's a snippet of London Type Foundry. Peter's a genius at drawing symbols. It's fantastic. So I wasn't going to do this, but the crit is the typeface at the end, but I was asked by Julie just to do a bit about Buy Font Save Lives, and I had this presentation I did recently. It's a bit of a sad one, this. My niece died, you know, she was 26, bowel cancer. It was awful, and I thought I would design a typeface. I'd never done it before, so I just started drawing, and all the money goes to cancer research at Macmillan, and this is the typeface. And I stupidly did 12 weights and 4 styles, so it took me 400 hours to do it, because I'd never done it before. I just cut everything out with a knife with a scalpel. I couldn't work out how to get curves. I didn't know about Bessier curves. And like I said, it took ages. Because there are 12 weights, and a bit like Knockout, it's got the same width, but weights in the centre. So I did my 12,288 drawings, like a fool. And then Paul said, you need to do 96 more so we can do the European. And just for the students, I always use these quotations when I do talks. Only connect, so I thought, what can I do? So I connected with Paul Hickson. I'd commissioned for type for like 40 years, and Joe Graham, who ran Fontworks for many years, and they helped me to get it to work. And Joe very kindly helped me market it and do the hosting and the metrics and the kerning and all the hinting, that things I know how to do now that I didn't know a thing about. And being there, and if you're a student, this is a key one really. We did the typeface. It wasn't great, but it existed and we could sell it. And I used Fontographer. I'd never used it before. Like I said, Joe said do a bit more. And then we did 4 different styles, italic and all kinds of, italics and outlines and stencil versions. I did some posters, some Shakespeare posters that, to promote the typeface. I thought some people might want to buy a poster, because not everyone buys a typeface, so we did some posters. And I realised that certain Shakespeare quotes look better in certain fonts, and some sell more than others as well. So I learnt about the way typefaces sell as well by doing this whole project. And amazingly, you know, Laura was very good at music. She was in a choir. She'd never really... She was a perfect young woman, actually. It was quite strange to see her disappear. And this was the best quote that sold, you know. Surprisingly, no one wants to buy To Be or Not To Be. That's the question. You know, people like if music with a fiddle of play on. And I did this thing just to show the weights. And I had this great idea, because I used to know Matt Wiley, who was doing New York Times, and he's a genius. And he was designing fonts as well, another magazine designer. And he gave me M-Fred, and it's a fantastic typeface. And a bit like I was working with Paul Hickson, he was working with Henrik Kubel at A2 Type, and to help him with the technology and all the metrics and the kerning and the fine details. Another typeface they called Timmons, and straight sides, like magazine designers like, so we can do nice headlines, you know, 4 words, all 4 words of same number of characters we like. And it sold very well because of Matt's work, really. You know, it made a huge bonus to what we were doing. This book's just come out using Matt's font, which is great for students. I just bought it for my son, who's a graphic design student. So I learnt that you don't have to do so many typefaces and all these variations, because Matt only does caps, and he outsold my typeface by 100 to 1, which was amazing. So I was there, and then the typefaces started appearing, and then so Creative Review and I Magazine gave us some space, so I did these ads for Creative Review, and Simon gave me the back of I Magazine, which was very kind of him, and the story started going, and well, it went all the way around the world, amazingly. So this is the advert. He gave me the back cover, which is incredible, and it went all over social media. I'd never done Twitter before, you know. So I joined Twitter because it was all of a sudden going around the world. There's all these sort of things in funny languages I didn't understand, like Scandinavian languages saying buy fonts save lives. Anyway, so it became a huge success. I was quite shocked. And then other designers started giving typefaces to us. We've got about 4 or 5 typefaces. And we did a typeface for Hezza for his garden because he owned my company I work for. And I know that you can't sell a typeface if you give it a Tory politician's name. Never do it. So, and I'd never voted for him. I'm a Labour man, so it was a bit of a strange thing for me to be saying that typeface. And then, amazingly, because type designers are so busy, it takes so long, as we heard earlier. Nick Cook gave us a typeface from G-Type. I used glyphs. We've made nearly £60,000. I thought I made a couple of grand. We made a lot of money, and the money goes straight from me and straight to the charities. So that's buy fonts. I wasn't going to do that, but that's buy fonts save lives. Oh, I got slightly better. So one of my typefaces I sell, I gave half the money from London Type Foundry. It's called Grace Roman, which is like a very fine brush-drawn classical typeface, like a refined Trajan, I suppose. They only cost £20, so we sold quite a lot. That's buy fonts save lives. I'll try and speed up.
Yeah.
Not too long. The next thing I'm going to do what I did for the first 45 years, which is show you some designs. I'm going to design some stuff with my typefaces for you, if that's okay.
So do the proceeds from all the sales go to the charity?
Yes.
Everything?
Everything, every penny of that one, yes.
And lots of people, anyone's invited to submit a font for free?
Well, because Matt's fonts are so good, we've become quite similar.
Yeah, fair enough.
We'd love to have some typefaces, but it takes. It takes. Why would you give it away? I'm very lucky that Matt and I do this as a secondary thing.
Yeah.
And Nick was a rarity, and Joe's brother died of cancer, Matt's father died of cancer, so hence the support.
It's such a great idea.
Yeah, we work very well. I was very emotional and pleased with it. Anyway, I'm just going to show you quickly, because I'm I'm taking up more time than I'm supposed to be. What we do with this. I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to show you what this typeface does. I have to shout louder. So it's called London Hoxton Square. And as you can see, every glyph. Sorry. Sits in a square. Sorry. Quite nervous tonight, which is not right, really, but there we go. And because my son's watching me, we did practice earlier. And it defies a lot of the things because it obviously doesn't have to have much metrics. This is what I do. So a lot of the fonts I do, not like Paul's ones, are actually to make them work like a poster or a magazine single page, like Fabian Baron would do, my favourite designer, or some of these great designers from the sort of 80s would do with their single pages.
Okay. Maybe I should show them the script. He's reading from that, all right?
Yes, exactly. I'm not just making this up. I need to see that. That was a mistake. Here we go. And now, the thing about this typeface is that every glyph, as it says here, is square. Yeah. And magazine designers are always looking for one of those. It fits. This fits, so it's a perfect thing for me. I'm going to move on quite quickly because I've got more of this. But
is the line spacing set in the font?
The line spacing is not set in the font. No, you have to set the line spacing. But the character spacing is set in the font, and that matches the gaps in the slab serifs. Yeah.
So it works with an algorithm, or how does it work?
It's just in the metrics. Yeah. Sorry. I always do the numbers first, which is so not like a type designer would do. I don't do hamburger fonts. I like numbers. I did maths A level. So that's ridiculous, but I did. Yes. I'm going to jump on just a little bit further on. Yeah, I'll just move on to the discs. One thing we did is this typeface was tested in a magazine. We realised that one problem is that you couldn't do two sides of headlines. So we have this version, which should explain a lot about the typeface. Which is one of the, I could actually finish with this if you want to. Is that there's a thing called Hoxton half square, and half square has here and here twice the amount in the secondary version of the typeface. So when you do a typeface that's half the size, it has a secondary amount of space. Yeah. And then recently, and I'll move to the end because I think I've taken too much time up. Everyone wants a drink. And I've just recently started working on another typeface that works in a similar way, which is called London Golden Square, which is a sans version, which I haven't done any punctuation for yet, so this is brand new. And sorry. It means you can, I'll just do this last thing. But feedback on this would be quite useful. As we're here. And this is how I would use it, you know. There we go. So they're the two recent ones. So a lot of my typeface are headline face, and a lot of Paul's typefaces are text faces. And he, like I said, he is older than me and teaches me, so I think he's 65. And he's done literally thousands of typefaces like I've done thousands of magazines. And that's it.
Great. Some comments about this, some improvements, yes.
It's not an improvement, but please turn it into LED so I can typeset this in Letterpress Workshop.
Good. Someone else?
So it comes out solid.
So it comes solid, yeah.
We've noticed that a lot of people buying the typefaces are people who print letterpress, strangely. Like Anthony Burrell and various people are buying our fonts to do what would... The people who are making print like it always was, but using fonts that have been drawn now, which is quite strange because there are only so many.
It's perfect for print.
Yes.
Sorry, it's not
right, do you want to make a comment? Because I've seen you writing some
No, just taking notes.
Go on, what notes are you taking?
Come on, right. Let's speak a little bit. I've got nothing to add to this, sorry. Congratulations.
Alex, come on.
Oh. Well, congratulations, it's amazing. Like, I really like it. And I have no idea what to say. It's like, I follow you on Instagram, so I really like your work. So I was quite surprised. You know, it's like,
I was
to
quite
see you here.
surprised I could do it.
Yeah, it's like,
I didn't think I'd be able to do it.
I don't know what to say, you know, to be honest. Congratulations. You know, it's like,
Well, likewise, I think you'll flourish.
I think the fact that
that
maybe Will would add on this, but the fact that it's adjustable and as you see type is going back to the previous presentation about seeing type as an image. And I'm going to go to Julie and then I'll come back to you, Will.
I won't shout. Well, I'm just interested to know if you're going to develop any sort of what range of sizes. Are you just staying with the all caps, or are you going to develop a range of sizes for this?
We have a problem because Joe keeps telling me, and we've just done a typeface that's based on a woodblock letter that David Hillman used to have drawn when I worked for Condé Nast, that now for us for David, and I quite like them without the overshoots because they're so dynamic, and a lot of Matt's typefaces. But whenever Joe speaks to me, he just says to me, Paul, can you please do another version with the overhangs, please? And I don't know, we sort of differ enormously about whether I should, but with the woodblock, which is called London Mouth Woodblock, we do have 2 versions now. And a local paper map is using it for a redesign in South East London, which is quite interesting. And they'll be using both the caps that don't have any overhang. It's very tight. It's what we used to call closed-out touching when we were younger, you know, very tightly spaced. But there are 2 versions of that font. There's London Mammoth Woodblock, and there's London Mammoth, which has got the overhangs. So it is a thing we need to do more of, but frankly, I've got limited time left because I'm 61. I don't want to be doing too many different variations of my
I don't want to hear that. That's not there. Will?
I think it's a beautiful system and a really interesting set of forms. I wanted to ask you about one of the distinctive features of the last set of letters that we looked at.
Yes.
The horizontal stress.
Yes.
The heavier weight on the horizontals than the verticals, which is one of the things that is most distinctive about it, and one of the things that's most unorthodox about it. Where did that come from?
The thing is, I knew that it was a happy discovery because the punctuation works so interesting because it overlaps. You can create a bit like you see in the brochure, almost like an instant Neville Brody, but it wasn't intended to be like that because the refinement is in the space. The refinement is where the points meet at the corners. So hence with this typeface, it's got like we used to have a typeface that Nick Cook designed called Hushka. So I did the rounded A purely because it has small edge, whereas the slab serif has the natural edges to it anyway. And this one's got the M and the W are exactly the same form upside down because it finishes the edge, because all the quality comes out of these narrow gaps. So in fact, the slab serif, you know, London Hoxton Square, it took me ages to find squares that had the same character counts in London, just so you know that, because I wanted them to be, because one thing I've got is a slide from when we were students. We did a poster outside college because Beans Means Heinz came out. It had, you know, 3 decks of 6 characters, which I wanted. And very often when I was doing magazines, I'd say, can I have 5 decks of 6 characters? And the sub-editor would say, do you really want me to write that? I said, I've got to be like that for this page. So I do it like that. And in fact, when we were students, we changed it overnight, this 48-sheet bill poster, to Beans Means Farts. And it ended up in Private Eye. And that was the only sample I could think of where it's a good advert that used a set of 5 characters in 3 words. It's a bit like the Sun does, you know, where they can do like a headline that's 6 decks of 3 characters sometimes. And not many people can do that.
I think, can you click so we'll go back to this?
That's my Beans Means Farms.
So I think the beauty of this is the fact that it works square. I don't see so much the weight, I don't see the way that it's laid out. I see it overall as an image. So I think the beauty of it is it works exactly because of this kind of matrix that you applied at the background, and that is the beauty. That is how it stands out, I think. Right, Paul, thank you. Thank you very much. When someone's submitting work to TypeThursday, stay with me, here, yeah, stay with me.
Oh, you think they were?
Okay. So when someone's submitting work on TypeThursday, it's going through the process. And mainly the person that is the first person that would look the work is not me, despite I'm here, because I'm coming second. That's Andrew. So Andrew, he's looking the work before it comes to any of us. So I think that he needs to take the credits for this, all right? So he's standing there quietly. So Zini, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, she's currently a student in LCC, right? And he's gonna show us her project, and she's looking for our feedback. Thank you for coming.
Hi everyone. So now I'm studying at London College of Computation. I'm doing my BA. I'm on of graphic and media design. I'm on my second year now. So this is a design project that we have. It's a university project, so it's a project that we've done in January. So it's a group project. So we are doing research together in a 5-people group. Has anybody heard of Grime before? No. Yes. Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I never heard before because I'm a Chinese and yeah. Actually, like when I do this design project, it's actually quite interesting. I'll show you why when I go through the project. So the brief was to create a design book jacket for a book called Hold Tight, which is kind of like a personal documentary of the author, how he perceived the development of Grime. And then second is to produce an A1 portrait format typography poster for the book. And then the third is the visual summary that documenting the whole design process. Yeah, so this is a 5-people group working. 3 of us, from 3 of the 5 people are from UK. And then I was responsible for the book cover design and poster design. So this is the original book cover of Hold Tight. I will show the visual research first, and then I will explain the design later because our design is based on our visual research. So at the beginning of the project, we have like around 200 people in our whole course. So like each group has to take like 25 images of how people perceive grime, this music. So it's the first now you can see is actually because grime is a music that originates from early 2000 from music artists from East London. So we went to East London, like Bow area, E3, where they grew up. And then we saw that they live in like a lot of like these council house, these buildings. And then also when we look, when we go for the first research, we also found out that it's a music that there are nowadays many young British people, like 20, 25, that they really like to listen. So this is like the second image, how it looks well. We also took some images of like how grime means literally, which is kind of like grayish colors, patterns. And then we also do some interview with like people, young people who listen to grime. And when we go through like some report for grime, we find out that grime, that the audience, like people who listen to grime, they want it to be more diverse and international, because normally the music of grime, like the lyrics, if you can see here, it's full of like slang, like, I don't know if I can say here, but like it has like a lot of like slangs like fuck and like a lot of like very bad words that you can imagine. So we find out that it's quite anti-establishment just from the lyrics that we conclude. And then we also find out that the artists who make grime are mostly black, young British boys who are based in London. And we can also see some pictures, a bit small, but like that's how they live. So we also look into some current graphic of the book cover, like what grime album has done, and what books about grime that has been published. And so we kind of left the design objectives that, which is anti-establishment from the lyrics, masculinity from the book cover, because people are using a lot of like sensory font to remain the masculinity of the music. And it's originated from UK. People want it to be diverse and international, so we developed later on the design from these objectives. So this design development. So at the beginning for the book cover, we developed 3 ideas that we can use UK, the abstract UK or London map to represent UK, which is the origin of the music. And then second is we are thinking to using skin as like representation as humanity, in which way to convey the message that Gwyn belongs to anyone, not only about like British people who made the music. And then for the typography response to the cover, we think about like using glitch effect to create some association of electronic music. I will show it in the versions later on. So it's like this. So this is like the first iteration that we done. And then this is like, in the end, one of our group mate that came up with the idea of using like prejudice to describe Gwyn's growth from the country. So I personally kind of make some abstract. It's actually kind of like abstract UK map. I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of like making by a lot of dots to make an abstract UK map. And then this is my final approach for the book cover design, which I abstract collect the elements from the architectures that where Gwyn artists will grow up. So that first one is like, oh gosh, I don't know. Yeah, and I will just quickly go through that. And then this is the poster design that, because it's a typographic response, I think it might be more catered to the event TypeThursday. So we kind of do like a lot of development from anti-establishment. And I also want to get some feedback from the experiment. So this is like the first experiment that we've done. We kind of just like try to like lay out the type in various ways. And then the second is we kind of try to like distort, like just trying to do a lot of repetitions for the poster. And finally, we end up with this one because it's after like group discussion and with discussion for the tutors, we want to use like to try to break the grids to represent the music and the experiment. But I don't think it works quite well because this one was like a short time change that we done in one day because our last version before this one that our tutor gave a lot of critics for the treatment for typography. We were using the same grid, but because this poster has too much information, so I also want to get feedback from this one because like we didn't have too much time to treat like the details for the poster. Like for example, I think that like the blue blocks should be more balanced on the poster, etc., etc. Yeah, and then finally is the visual research document that if you want to go through. Yeah. So yeah, because I personally quite like book design, so I kind of put a lot of efforts for the research document. So the research document is also trying a way that I want to express my perception to the project, and I kind of designed it on a kind of chunky size that's 27 centimeter by 22.5, and I also use silver. I don't know if you see it. I also use like silver cardboard paper and metallic paper to make up with the inner pages, and a light blue paper to kind of reflect the masculinity behind Gwyn, the music. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Can you go back to the poster? The last one. Right. Obviously, you would like some feedback on this work. bear in mind when you're giving feedback to combine the two previous projects that we've seen. Like for example, Paul's project was about the squares and fixing the squares in a space to create aesthetically something pleasant and to stand out. Dennis' work from the other side, it was a minimalistic approach, a reduction to the style. So if you bring these two together, maybe you will be able to give some more feedback on this poster, all right? So some comments? Yes.
So what was the book cover and the book cover? Can you go back to the book cover? So where did you get these grids and structures? You were going to talk about it a bit more, and we haven't heard anything.
Why chose to design
Yeah.
So this is my final approach to the book cover design. So these are the graphic that, like abstract graphic that extract from the architecture where the grime artists they live in. From let me show you the first slide. Oh, sorry, it's quite long. Yeah. So the first one the first book cover, if you can remember, is actually developed from like the pattern of this architecture. I think it's kind of made of like irregular roundstone. I don't know how to say that in English, but like the surface itself is kind of like come up with like irregular circles. And then the second one, the grid one, was if you know the playground of the council house area, the playground, the grid, when they have the playground. So that's actually extract from the grid that's surrounded by the playground in the council house area, like where the kids play. And then the third one is actually extracted. I just done it in Illustrator somehow, and then I extracted from the picture. And then I think it's the pattern of the third architecture, and then of the first one, I can't remember. But it kind of somehow come up with that texture. And then I just think it look good, appropriate. Yeah, so those are all experiment. It's not the final one I submit. So, yeah.
With the timeline, you were looking for some feedback on the timeline. Did you want to put that back up on the screen again? And having it in a series of columns is kind of probably sort of quite a different way to how people would sort of normally represent a timeline. Which way is this one being presented? Is it column by column as a timeline? So
how do you read it?
You read down the left-hand, the first column and then the next column, or do you read across?
You mean how to construct the grid?
Yeah.
It's actually a horizontal vertical grid, but then I just like tricked it together.
Yeah.
So I kind of rotate it like 7 or 8 degrees, and then come up with this grid. And then we're trying to like just break the grid on this rotated grid to expect the anti-spectrum, but I still don't get bricks quite well.
I think that it's playful, yeah. However, when it comes to colors in relation to the text, it creates some kind of like narrative, so it's very difficult to read maybe. It becomes a bit more difficult to read when the text, when the typography comes very close to the barrier of the different color, and especially the selection of the color doesn't help this to stand out. So maybe you need really to reconsider the boxing and the grid, especially when it comes to background color, so that text reads and stands out. The comment that Andrew said, it was mainly because we read in a specific way. So if it is horizontal, then, and because it's a timeline, then you have to define elements and points within this timeline that is easy to read without really reading it, scanning, you know? Like you have some really key points there.
Yeah.
Whoa. Plenty. All right. I'm going to Omar.
So I think for all the background, you got like a lot of background work in terms of like research, understanding like what was a grime, but I don't see that really reflected in the kind of final work. when I see like grime, I see like music, hip hop, I see like culture, like a lot of depth into it, and kind of also from the book cover and the poster, I see that it's not representing like the musical aspect of it. Like the book covers represent more the architecture aspect of the buildings, but that's kind of one aspect of the artist, the background, but you don't get that instant raw kind of feeling when you see the final work, and that's kind of what I kind of missing a little bit, that kind of depth and connection, instant connection with what is the purpose of the poster. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand your point. Because when we do the visual research, we were looking at like what other people has done, and these are not the really cliche one. But when we look at the design, we saw like a lot of like cliches. And then because when we do the research, that we see the audience, the people who listen to Guam, they expect it to be more diverse and international. So we kind of, when we do design, we want to kind of avoid the cliche to make it like a new look.
To stand on its own.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why it's not.
Hi. I just wanted to say that I feel like, Israeli, so the sun is eye. Just wanted to say that I think the poster works better than the book cover because it feels organic. You can feel that he took the inspiration from the council buildings. The grid, the layout, everything works, for me at least, much better than the book cover. It feels different language than the urbanic that you're trying to get, the architecture, the concrete. Yeah, this is my comment.
There was another comment here. I don't sound, you want to say something?
I was going to say, I think you, in a lot of the quite expressive and typographic, where you have a lot of type, you really captured the idea of like fast pace. All the music's very fast paced and it's like up tempo, and I think that is translated into like the very type, like the black and white in particular, with a lot of type. That kind of the idea of it being really like wordy, and it's almost like rap music. It's like it's expressed and then it's designed. I think it's really well done.
Anyone else? Yes, Will.
It just struck me that looking at the development of the concepts here, there was one line of inquiry that seemed to me to have a lot of unexplored potential. And this was the idea of the petri dish, which I think got perhaps sidelined or derailed by the fact that it was explored largely in terms of a petri dish being a circle. But perhaps the important thing about a petri dish is not the shape of it, but the fact that it's a space in which things develop in unpredictable and exciting ways. And I wonder whether an unexplored future way forward for this project would be to go back to the idea of the petri dish and look at how that idea might actually be articulated typographically.
Great. One more comment.
I think it will be better for you to understand the ground culture of grime because, as I say, for example, I think you were more focused in the aesthetic, to do something cool, than to have a really strong background in terms of concept. I think you are connecting obviously the architecture with the covers, but then it's not connected with the underground culture. And also, for example, in the drawing that you were doing the poster, you were doing something cool, contemporary graphic design art, but it's not connecting again with the concept of grime thing. So when I see the posters, not the final poster, the previous one where you were trying, I think techniques are really good and the posters are good, but I think are quite modern and contemporary more than connected with the underground culture. So I think you need to focus in the research, in the underground research, more than to research in for example, in contemporary graphic designer because maybe I'm not connecting with what you are looking for. I think will help to understand the culture more than a cool graphic designer now.
One last comment. Yes.
Well, I agree with what he said as well, but what I like about the last image you showed about the poster, about this kind of music normally talks about the individual, but it's like about the ego of the singer. And what I like about the the last one. Yeah, the grime, the yellow one, I think it's maybe visually it doesn't show grime, but what I like about this is like you are making to the reader to do an effort, you know, and this kind of music speaks about the individual, you know, and then you're making like the reader to do like an activity, you know. It's not like easy to read, and it's not, the music is not easy to listen either, you know, like to understand what the point of it. So maybe this is I think this is something positive, you know, like maybe you need to think out maybe the visual stuff, but the effort the person needs to do to read it, I think I quite like it, you know, but it's not easy, so.
No, it's very good. I really like the layout of the book that's going around. I hope you will get it back because it's not for you to keep, all right? Okay, right, thank you very much for that. Drinks maybe, or?
Just a minute.
We like drinks in this department, I'm telling you. Okay, that's you now.
Well, we'll have, I don't know if there are many drinks left actually, but anyway, there is more time to have a drink, but before we do that, we do need to thank, so let me explain. For those of you that are new to Type Thursday, this is all done by volunteers. Every month we put on events in London and everything happens because there's an amazing team of people that make it happen. So tonight, I just want to recognise our volunteers. Kaylee's here. He's been helping us. Would you like to come up, actually? Because, no, you hate that, don't you? I won't do that to you. But, yeah, I've done that. But Kaylee is organising a type jam, okay, where we're going to design type live together over a weekend.
And you need to explain the type jam.
Yeah, come on. You see, I did offer, but, you know, he's going to...
Okay. You did this on purpose, I know you did. But anyway, so, if anyone's ever seen, in America there was an event, it's kind of affiliated with Type Thursday, but it's its own separate event called Type Jam. It's done by a guy called Jake Fleming, a fantastic designer and illustrator in his own right. And it's based on the concept of a game jam. A game jam is a hackathon. So a hackathon is an event where designers, artists, programmers all get in a room and they have to just create something over a weekend. So what Jake did is he thought, well, why don't we do that with type? And so the idea is you spend a whole weekend, and it doesn't matter if you know nothing about type, it doesn't matter if you know anything at all. We will teach you for about an hour at a time, then you get paired up with random people, and you have to make a workable typeface. And there'll be prizes to the best ones, and hopefully you'll learn something, and hopefully you'll create something brilliant. We're still not completely 100% on details yet, but we do have a space, and Bruno and Daz and Mag have kindly let us use their space. It will probably happen around September, and be fantastic to have a lot of you here there.
Yeah, we'll let you know in the newsletter as soon as we have the dates fixed for that. But so Jasmine and Julia, I mean, goodness, ever since October when we launched Type Thursday, they have been stalwarts in the volunteer team, helping us to, well, welcome you and make sure you're looked after during the evening. So a big round of applause for Jasmine and Julia. And of course, the man taking all the photos over there is our photography lead. Since day one, has been on the team as well, Jean-Luc, who's from Greenwich as well. Deborah has stepped in amazingly, and thanks for doing that, by the way, Anastasius, for helping us to find someone to step in for Manto. Manto Baptiste, who's our usual videographer, couldn't come tonight, but Deborah is here tonight, and she actually won our student poster competition for our first event. So thank you, Deborah, and your colleague. I don't know him, but has he gone or is he here? No, okay, all right. He's. Oh, Luca. Okay, thank you, Luca, as well. Big clap. All right, so and that's the rest of the team. Look at all those people that make Type Thursday happen. If you want to make a Type Thursday happen in another city in the UK, you have friends in another. I know there are some people that have travelled a long way today. I've got a student here from Birmingham, and Will comes all the way from Cambridge just to see us. So let us know, and we'll help you make it happen in your city as well. So thanks for coming. Let's have a bit more socialising. We can stay here for a little while. We'll kick you out when we want to. I think, Anastasius, well, how long have we got?
You have enough time to finish 4 bottles of wine.
Okay, thanks for coming. The next event is actually at... oh, hang on, nearly forgot. On that volunteer team, we need someone who loves doing social media. So if anybody loves doing social media in this room, please put the hand up and come and see us. And you get lovely fonts, you get free access to everything that we do, you get loads of contacts in the network globally, jobs, things like that. So please let me know if you fancy getting on Twitter and helping to whip up a bit of a social storm. And apply at the bar. There you go. Thank you for coming, and as I think we've said before, but maybe not, the next event is at Dalton Marg, and that's in Brixton on the 10th of May, so I hope to see you all there. Thanks.
As you can see, this is, as I said at the beginning, this is a building with lots of opportunities. So if you think that you would like to run a project, or you think that you want to do a presentation or to do an event, please let me know, and I will make it happen. Yeah.